Welcome to Preservation Oaks, the podcast where we invite you to step away from the bustle of everyday life. Settle in and relax, and take a moment to leave the familiar behind as we explore the hidden gems of America that preserve our cultural past. We call them our Preservation Oaks, and with each episode, we'll journey to a different corner of the country, where we'll discover the unique histories, landscapes, and communities that make up our nation. We'll visit with local museums, historical and genealogical societies. They are the stewards of these stories. They preserve the legacy of each place like precious pieces of fabric in a quilt that binds the freedom-loving, hardworking people in this country together. So, slow down, grab a beverage, open your mind, and let us take you on a tour of the fascinating histories and heartfelt traditions that lie just beyond the horizon. This is Preservation Oaks, where every story is a stitch in the fabric of our shared culture. Now, join our host, Sean Radcliff, as he uncovers another thread in the tapestry of America's heritage and what it takes to preserve it.
Well, hello, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Preservation Oaks, and Happy New Year to everybody. This is the program where we discuss history worth preserving. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff, coming to you today from picturesque Salt Lake City, and broadcasting to listeners across the United States and around the world. Whether you're joining us from the snow-covered Rockies, Michigan's Upper Peninsula, a beautiful cafe in Sweden, the warm beaches of Brazil, the Netherlands, Britain, or the historic plazas of Guadalajara, Mexico, we're honored that you've tuned in. Today's episode is truly something special because we're heading up to the mountains, and not just any mountains, the Colorado Rockies, home to snow, adventure, Olympic legends, ski troopers, and a spirit of community that's carved right into the slopes. Our guest today is somebody who knows this world inside and out, Jen Mason, Executive Director of the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame, located right in the heart of beautiful Vail, Colorado. This museum is a cultural treasure, dedicated to preserving the stories of skiing and snowboarding of the heroic 10th Mountain Division of Colorado's legendary athletes and mountain pioneers, and of a winter culture that helped shape the state itself. Before we begin, a quick reminder. If you have questions or comments about today's episode, you can reach us at preservationoaks@gmail.com. And please like, follow, subscribe, or leave a comment on your favorite podcast platform. We're streaming on Podbean, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Rumble, and many others. All right, grab your coat, adjust your goggles, and let's glide into today's conversation. This is Preservation Oaks, episode 112, with the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame. And now I'd like to introduce our guest. Jen Mason has been the Executive Director of the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame since 2019. The museum is a crown jewel of the community. She is a leader who is truly shaping the future of Vail, a cornerstone of the Vail community, who has served as a Vail Town Council member and a Director of Operations for the Gerald R. Ford Amphitheater at the Vail Valley Foundation for over 18 years. Jen's commitment to her community also led her to public office, where she was elected to the Vail Town Council in 2015. With 18 years of experience at the foundation and a deep passion for Colorado heritage, she's the perfect person guiding this wonderful snow sports heritage museum. We are honored to have Jen Mason here with us to discuss this incredible organization. Under her leadership, the museum has expanded programs, strengthened community connections, and further illuminated Colorado's snow sports legacy for tens of thousands of visitors each year. She brings a wealth of leadership, mountain community insight, and passion for history, all wrapped in the joyful energy that defines Colorado's slopes. All right, let's get going. Jen, welcome to Preservation Oaks. You know we're excited to have you with us today.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for including us in this amazing podcast of yours.
You're very welcome. What's something about your work that excites you the most?
The best part of my whole day is, even though we get to tell stories, is here everybody has a story, right?
Yeah.
Everybody learned to ski. Somebody knows somebody in the 10th mountain division, but everybody has a story. So that's the best part, is listening to everybody's stories.
Yeah. That's very cool.
I know. It is pretty fun.
The Vail Village area has a charming European style feel. What about Vail's character do you think makes it a special place for a museum like yours?
Well, our museum is obviously based around snow sports. And, snow sports are very rooted in European history. And it's no accident that Vail Village feels like a little European village. Like, you could kind of close your eyes and open your eyes again, and you're like, am I in Germany or Austria or the mountains of Switzerland? And it is no accident that Vail Village has a very European feel to it. It was designed that way and created that way when Vail was created in 1962.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Yes, it really is. It's kind of a magical little village.
The museum's free admission is somewhat unique. Could you talk about why you chose that model and what it means for accessibility?
Yeah, so we love that we are a complimentary museum, and we owe a lot of that to the town of Vail. So Vail, the Colorado Snowsports Museum, was started by Vail associates at the time, and the town of Vail, Colorado, the state of Colorado, was celebrating our 100th birthday. And when we were celebrating our 100th birthday, the state was employing towns and cities around the state to do unique and legacy lasting, projects. And they were like, well, there's no ski museum in the state of Colorado. And this is 1975. So at that point, they were like, well, we're going to start a ski museum. And they made it free. And 50 years later, we are still free and open to all, because we really want to be inclusive to everyone.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's fantastic that you can go there, come into the museum, it's free, and you learn so much.
Yeah, you can learn. Yeah, the only investment you have is time, which is so fun. You can spend 5 minutes there, you can spend 5 hours there.
Now, the winter season obviously drives a lot of activity there in Vail. How does the museum engage with the off-season or summer visitors?
Well, we are fortunate enough that the town of Vail, good and bad, sits on I-70, which is a major road in the state of Colorado. And we get a lot of visitors that are passing through and just coming by. And we do have a sign on the side of the highway that says Snowsports Museum. And so we get a lot of people that are just super interested in museums, which is super helpful to us. And then we also get a lot of people, because of our 10th Mountain exhibit, that are super interested in World War II. So we kind of have a big cross section of people that will swing by and stop.
Very interesting. Now, can you tell us about memorable events or tales from Eagle County or Vail that reflect its distinctive character?
Yeah, like memorable events. Like Vail is, as all ski towns are, I'm sure, but Vail is full of kind of wild stories. Like Vail has a very unique beginning, and the fact that Vail was created out of nothing. Everybody who lived in Vail in the early days of Vail in 1962, all the way, at least for the first 15 years, they were there because they wanted to be there. It's not like they grew up there and then they just kind of ended up there. Everybody was there because they wanted to be there. And that created a ton of memories and a very unique group of individuals who just loved the sport of skiing and wanted that adventurous spirit.
Yeah, Vail's story is very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about the story behind Vail's establishment and which significant events have played a crucial role in its development?
Yeah, the difference between Vail versus like other ski towns in Colorado, let's just take like Crested Butte, Telluride, Breckenridge, Aspen, for example. they were mining towns. So they were towns that had minerals and mining, and the miners lived there, and they had all those cute little Victorians at the turn of the century. And there was a group of people that lived there, and that, they had created a life there in the early 1800s and the late 1800s and the turn of the 1900s, because they were mining for minerals, in the gold and silver era. And Vail was unique because Vail didn't exist. It was just, there was a couple families that lived here, and like they grew lettuce. There were some sheep farmers. Like it was really just a whole bunch of open space. And so that really made it much different. And when Pete Seibert met Earl Eaton, he had been trying to find a place to open a ski area for many, many years. And Vail is very unique that we get a ton of snow. And Vail is it's not a super steep mountain, but it's a really fun mountain to ski. It's a big grassy knoll, so the snow really sticks to it well on top of everything.
Yeah, fantastic. And it was Pete Seibert that
Seibert,
established
his name is Seibert.
That
Pete
established
Seibert.
Vail, and he was a 10th Mountaineer, right?
Yeah, so Pete Seibert was in the 10th Mountain Division, and he was on Riva Ridge, in the Battle of Riva Ridge in the northern Alpine of Italy. And he was injured very badly, and they said he would never walk again. Well, Pete he was over in Aspen before he came over to Vail. And he was he ski raced and did all these things. And, he was a ski instructor, he was a ski patroller in Aspen. And, for someone that was told he would never walk again, he surely overcame a lot of obstacles. And he was just bound and determined to open his own ski area. And so serendipitously, he met Earl Eaton over in Aspen.
Right. One of the things I think is so cool, Jen, is how Pete Seibert started Vail, but he was part of the 10th Mountain Division, and the 10th Mountain Division has such a wonderful history. And the reason it's important is because the 10th Mountain Division is still in Vail, and you give tours of the 10th Mountain Division's camp. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We do that. Yeah, we give tours of Camp Hale, which is 20 minutes as the crow flies and 45 minutes by car.
Okay.
Yeah, so we definitely, we do tours of Camp Hale. And typically what I always say is when we give our Vail history tours, I'm always like, all right, people, just bear with me here. Like, we got to go back to World War II and talk about the 10th Mountain Division. And I promise you, I'm like, give me 20 minutes. I'm going to talk about the 10th Mountain Division, and then it'll all circle back, and you'll understand why I need to talk about. We're going to go back in time to World War II for a little bit.
Well, can you talk just a little bit about the intertwining of the 10th Mountain Division and the Snowsports Museum and how that works?
Yes. So we can't really talk about ski history and even Colorado ski history without talking about the 10th Mountain Division. Because prior to World War II, there weren't many resorts. There was a few MAPA resorts in the state of Colorado. There were some resorts, some, I wouldn't call them resorts, but, tow ropes and things like that kind of based in the Front Range. And there really wasn't a big ski industry in Colorado or in the United States for that matter. And so Minnie Dole he was from New Hampshire, and Minnie Dole was skiing and he broke his ankle. And why do we care about this? Well, we care about this because Minnie Dole, when he broke his ankle, it was a fiasco to get him off the mountain. And he was like, this is insane. No one's ever going to allow their family members to go skiing. I simply, I broke my ankle. So at that point, Minnie Dole created the National Ski Patrol. And the National Ski Patrol still uses many of the policies and procedures that Minnie Dole put in place almost 90 years ago, which is pretty incredible. So why do we care about this Minnie Dole? So then he wrote letter after letter after letter to the War Department before we were in the war, being we as the United States, and said, we have to create a mountain division. And this mountain division needs to be modeled after the country of Finland. So if you think about it, Finland did the impossible task of defending their country from Russia, which is, think about how big Russia is. And then the little country of Finland was able to defend themselves using mountain warfare tactics, and they used reindeer. And Minnie Dole had proposed that they use mules instead of reindeer, and all these different ideals. And he wrote over 200 letters to the War Department saying, we have to create this mountain division. And then, unfortunately, Pearl Harbor happened.
Yeah.
And when Pearl Harbor happened, we as the United States had no choice, but we were in the war. Like, we were in it and we had to do it. And so we became a part of World War II at that point. And Minnie Dole received a call from Dwight Eisenhower himself, who at the time was the commander of the Army. And he said, all right, Minnie, start your ski troops. And this is how it all started. And Minnie had a famous line that said, I'm going to turn skiers into soldiers. Because for those of you who are, proficient at skiing, you understand you don't learn to ski in a week. So he was like, I'm going to take a bunch of skiers and I'm going to train them to be soldiers. That's going to be easier than taking soldiers and turning them into skiers.
Right.
So he did this whole big recruitment campaign all over. He went to kind of the Ivy League schools of the East Coast, Harvard, Dartmouth, Yale, Middlebury, UVM, because they had ski teams. And so he recruited from them. And he also, not only did he get the collegiate skiers to come and join the 10th Mountain Division, and interestingly enough, you had to have 3 letters of recommendation, but their ski coaches also decided to join.
Oh.
And many of those ski coaches were European men who were living over here in the United States. And then they then joined they joined the US Army, which is pretty incredible. And a lot of them were from Norway and Austria, and they fought alongside with the Americans, which is pretty cool.
And some of this is because the Germans, the Nazis, were embedded in the Italian Alps.
Yes, they were embedded in the Italian Alps, and they were kind, because as we all know, Mussolini and Hitler were in cahoots with each other, and Hitler was just taking over the country of Italy. He was just using them for, they had all those port cities, and he was feeding his soldiers, and they were just using and abusing the country of Italy for sure.
Right. As I understand it, their first engagement after they were started was sending troops into the Italian Alps to root out the Germans.
Yeah, so 10th Mountain Division started in late 1942, but they weren't actually deployed into the war until December of 1944. So they trained in the mountains of Colorado for almost 2.5 years. They, a lot of the 10th Mountain soldiers, they left because they wanted to fight for their country. And they're like, we're just in the mountains of Colorado, like training and doing all these things. And I really want to defend my country. And some of them chose to leave the 10th Mountain Division, and then they would get new groups of soldiers that would come in, and because they were getting frustrated because they were not deployed until December of 1944 and early January of 1945.
Right.
And they were deployed too. And the reason why was because the Allies had tried for 18 months to break what they call the Gothic Line. And this Gothic Line was held, it was kind of the upper part of the Italian boot. And they were held in that, the top part of the boot. And it was the line kind of up in that Alpine. And nobody could get by the German soldiers. And if you were stationed in that part of Italy, you were a high ranking, very, very proficient officer in the German army.
Okay. And then Pete comes along, he gets wounded. He comes then after the war and scouts Vail and starts the Vail Resort in 1962.
Yes, yeah, and that's another whole we could do a whole podcast on how Vail was made. It would be great. But yeah, and it also wasn't just Pete. Many, many other 10th Mountain soldiers went on to do, all sorts of, they pretty much endowed the entire outdoor industry and we estimate that about 90% of all ski areas in the United States have some sort of connection back to a 10th Mountain soldier.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, like Fiedel Pfeiffer, for example, He helped turn Aspen into the ski mecca that it is today, because Aspen Mountain just existed. He helped create Aspen Highlands and Snowmass and Buttermilk, and
Wow.
that's it. And then also A Basin, those guys, there's so many, the list goes on and on and on. But the 10th Mountain Division really have everything to do with the ski areas and the ski industry in the United
Right.
States.
And that brings us right back around to the Snow Sports Museum, because you're not a Vail museum, you're not a Eagle County museum, you're a Colorado Snow Sports Museum and Hall of Fame. And that to me
Yes,
is an important distinction.
that is an important distinction, because when you walk into the Colorado Snowsports Museum, the first thing that you see is kind of the foundation, and the first exhibit is the crown jewel, which is the 10th Mountain Division and their story and how they created the ski industry in the United States.
That's just amazing.
When you first walk in, you see a big, very cool painting of Minnie Dole. Because if it wasn't for Minnie Dole, he is the founder of the 10th Mountain Division and the National Ski Patrol.
Right. Now, is Pete still alive?
No, unfortunately, Pete Seibert passed away in 2001.
Okay.
So quite a ways. Yeah.
Okay. Well, sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
According to your visit page, the museum is located on the third level of the Vail Village parking structure adjacent to the covered bridge. How did that location come about, and what advantages does it offer for the museum experience?
So the museum, when we first opened, we're going to be coming up on our 50th anniversary. When we first opened, we were located about 2.5, maybe 3 blocks away from where we currently are. And we were in a little building that was 500 square feet, kind of small little building. And then in 1992, we moved into the Vail Transportation Center, which is just so centrally located, and kind of the heart of Vail Village is the covered bridge and the clock tower, and that's the heart. So we are literally steps away from the heart of Vail Village.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question about your museum. What led
Mm-hmm.
to the establishment of your museum, and what formative experiences were pivotal in its early development?
Yeah, so we were formed by a group of individuals: Bob Parker, 10th Mountain Division soldier, another gentleman by the name of Terry Minger, and a couple others. We were formed in 1976, and it was to celebrate Colorado's 100th birthday. And the state was employing towns to create legacy projects. And so they thought, well, we're going to start the first Colorado Ski Museum, and that is our first official name. We were established as the Colorado Ski Museum on November 13th, 1975.
Yeah, so you are coming up to 50 years.
I know, we're so excited.
That is great. Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah.
Are you planning special exhibits next year or anything like that?
We have 2 new exhibits that were coming up to celebrate our 50th anniversary. One being is we are going to celebrate the legacy of Warren Miller. Warren Miller, as we all know, is a pivotal filmmaker in the ski industry. So many people learned about the sport of skiing and saw it and got stoked. He kind of created what they call a whole new genre of films. And it was called like Stoke Films, which got people super excited for the upcoming season. And he would go around himself in the early days and just get people excited to go skiing in the early fall, kind of, in October and November for the upcoming ski season. And he spent some time in Vail, but he also spent some time in many other ski towns as well. He lived in Sun Valley. He was from California. So we're having a really cool new exhibit on Warren Miller. And then we also are going to create a new exhibit that'll be up for maybe a year and a half. That'll just tell the story of the museum
Great.
for the 50 years of the museum. Yeah, it'll be a small exhibit. The much larger one is the Warren Miller exhibit.
So 2026 is going to be like the trifecta for you, because you're going to have the Colorado 150th anniversary, the country's 250th anniversary and the museum's 50th anniversary.
Yes. So 250, the country is turning 250. And then, as you said, Colorado's 150, and then we're turning 50.
Wow.
And also the town of Vail.
Yeah.
So this also is another kind of fun little fact. You know, the Vail Ski Mountain started on December 15th, 1962. But then the town didn't become a town until 1966. So the town is also celebrating its 60th birthday.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. So many celebrations.
What is going on next year? Wow, you need to be in Vail next year, folks.
Yes. Yeah. And the whole thing's going to kind of culminate on July 4th, which I know sounds kind of funny for a ski town, but that's going to be the big culmination of all the celebrations for Colorado and the town of Vail turning, having all these big birthdays.
Well, that's fantastic. I wish you all the best for that. Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Now, listeners, I'd like to provide you with the contact information for the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame in Vail, Colorado. You can find their website at www.snowsportsmuseum.org. Their phone number is 970-476-1876. Their address is 231 South Frontage Road, East Vail, Colorado 81657. You can find them on Facebook at Colorado Snowsports Museum, and their email is museum@snowsportsmuseum.org. That all sound right, Jen?
Yes, that is perfect.
All right.
Yes. Way to nail it.
Now, with a reported 75,000 annual visitors to Vail, how does your organization fulfill its role in the community, and what are the primary goals and demographic characteristics of your members?
So we also are the Colorado Snowsports Hall of Fame, and those Hall of Fame members include people like Minnie Dole, who obviously does not reside in Vail. He's long deceased, but we also have many, many Hall of Fame members from Steamboat, Aspen, Telluride, Breckenridge. So a lot of our members are possibly family members or people connected to those Hall of Fame members, because again, we are not the Vail Museum. We are the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame. But obviously we are located in Vail. We have become quite the community hub, and we do a lot of fun, different projects. We have an educational series. So we've really become the place to go when you have visitors in town so they can learn about your town. Because I think everybody feels that Vail is just a resort town, and they don't realize that there really is a community and a fabric of people who live and work in Vail and call it their home.
Oh, yeah. Now, you probably live in or around Vail yourself.
I do. I'm lucky enough that I live in the town of Vail.
What drew you to the Vail Valley, and how did you come to lead the Snowsports Museum?
Well, my family moved to Vail when I was 17, and my mom and dad met in the town of Aspen. And so we are a skiing family, and we moved around a little bit and kind of all over the country. And then we ended up back in Vail when I was still a teenager. And so this is where my family is. Like, my whole family is here. So it's pretty incredible that we landed here. And once you're a skier, you're a skier. Like, I've been on skis since I was 3 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And I started working on the mountain out of college. And so skiing's always been in my, it's definitely in my blood. I love skiing. I love being outside. And then prior to this job, I worked at another nonprofit organization in the Vail Valley called the Vail Valley Foundation. Okay. And the Vail Valley Foundation was established in 1987. And they were originally established because Vail wanted to host the 89 World Alpine Ski Championships. So that organization is deeply rooted in skiing history and skiing racing in the Vail Valley. And so I worked there for 18 years before coming to the Colorado Snowsports Museum.
Yeah, let's not forget that Vail is not only a resort town, not only has a thriving community, but it also has very competitive sports for snow skiing.
Oh my goodness. Yes. We are deeply rooted in ski racing and skiing history. And that again is no accident. We started hosting what would now be World Cup events, but in 1967. And that was all done by Bob Parker, who was a 10th Mountain Soldier, who Pete Seibert brought in. He was a marketing genius. And he was like, well, we have to host ski races because then the likes of John Clyde Keeley and Billy Kidd and Jimmy Huga all came to Vail to ski race. So that put us on the map. The town of Steamboat and Steamboat Resort seems to be breeding Olympians. Just another fun fact is the town of Steamboat has over 100 Olympians that were born and or raised or have a connection back to Steamboat. Vail is, probably close behind there. I don't know exactly how many we have.
Well, let me ask you this for people that have never been to a ski resort. If I come to the ski resort, if I get on a plane and come to Vail during the snow season, will I be able to attend professional competitions as a visitor at the same time?
Well, yes, sometimes, as we all know, World Cup skiing has a tight calendar, and the Vail Beaver Creek Valley does host the men's World Cup every year. And it was just last weekend in December. So if you hit it at the right weekend, but it's, those big events don't happen. They just happen annually once a year.
Right. Okay.
But yes, yeah, but there is lots of ski racing and things that go on.
But I mean, if you plan it right, you could not only come and ski, you could not only come and enjoy the resort and the town, but you could also see a very competitive professional skiing event.
Yeah, you can watch the fastest skiers in the world
Wow.
at Beaver Creek. Yes, in early December, which is so fun.
That is great. Jen, in what ways do you see the museum adapting its role to better serve the community in the coming years?
That, like I said before, the museum is becoming more and more of a community hub. And we are really trying to become a resource for many people, when they have visitors and they bring them into town to really tell them the story of Vail. And we also are trying to do more and more events, like educational events. We're also doing, which I know sounds kind of funny, but artistic events, like come and, make Thanksgiving turkeys on skis and things like that. We're just kind of becoming a venue for a place for community members to gather and learn at the same time.
Yeah, I've seen some of the art stuff on the internet. It's really nice.
Really nice. And then this amazing educational series. And, we have local authors that do book signings. And if anybody writes a new book on the 10th Mountain Division, I always try to reach out to them right away and say, hey, if you're coming through Colorado, we would love to be part of your book tour. Or even if somebody wrote a new book on, new, ski patrol in Colorado, right. We are always looking for authors and books and anything to educate our guests on the snow sports world. We're the first one to pick up those authors or, presenters to come into the museum and educate people and bring it to life.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing that work too.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any entertaining or notable anecdotes from your organization's history that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, because we are turning 50, I was able to get a bunch of about 6 or 7 of the previous executive directors together. We had a Zoom meeting this summer, and I just kind of wanted to hear like their favorite moments and their stories from when they worked at the museum. And one of the things that I loved is, Pete Seibert wrote a book called Triumph of a Dream. And he wrote most of that book in the museum, in the back office, which is really fun. So that meant that Pete Seibert was the founder of Vail, was in the museum, for months on end. And then we also have a lot of footage of like Warren Miller in the museum and Sarge Brown. And these guys, Sarge Brown was also a 10th Mountain Soldier, and he obviously was a sergeant. And, they just had these amazing stories from back in the day, which is really fun just to hear and see all these stories.
Yeah, that's cool that Pete was in the museum for a long time.
I know. I wish I was there, but I wasn't.
Now, Jen, I think it's time to take a break for a few minutes.
Yes, I would love to take a break. Yes. This has been so fun talking to you. I love hearing all these wonderful questions.
It's great to talk to you, too. Now, stay with us, folks. We'll be right back with more after these messages about visiting Vail and the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame. It's an experience you won't want to miss.
Dreaming of your next mountain escape? Pack a little history into your adventure. Head to the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame, located in the heart of Vail Village at 231 South Frontage Road East, Vail, Colorado. Free admission daily from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Yes, free for all visitors. Step inside and journey through the very evolution of snow sports in Colorado. From the heroic legacy of the 10th Mountain Division to the rise of freestyle skiing and snowboarding, your kids can marvel at vintage gear, you can interact with cutting-edge exhibits, and the whole family can take a break from the slopes for an inspiring indoor experience. Conveniently located right in Vail Village parking structure, and there's free parking after 3 p.m. It's easy to pop in between ski runs or even during a summer escape.
So when you're planning your next trip to the mountains, don't just conquer the slopes, dive into the stories behind them. Visit snowsportsmuseum.org for hours, directions, and special events. Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame, where adventure meets history. We'll see you in Vail.
Nine out of 10 listeners agree Preservation Oaks is the best podcast on the internet.
This is Preservation Oaks, and here's another Footnotes of History. Our footnote today is the 1786 Annapolis Convention, the quiet meeting that forged a nation. Sometimes the most important revolutions begin not with gunfire, but with a handful of frustrated delegates meeting in an empty hall. The year was 1786. The American Revolution was won, the Treaty of Paris signed, and the 13 former colonies were now independent states. But victory had left them with a problem: how to govern themselves together. Under the Articles of Confederation, Congress had little power. It could not tax, could not regulate commerce between states, and could barely raise funds to pay soldiers or foreign debts. Each state guarded its independence like treasure, and the national government was broke, ineffective, and drifting. Farmers were rioting in Massachusetts in what became known as Shays' Rebellion. Trade between states was snarled with tariffs and rival currencies. The grand dream of a united America was beginning to look like a fragile experiment. In September 1786, delegates from just 5 states, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Virginia, met in Annapolis, Maryland, to discuss one narrow issue: how to fix trade regulations among the states. The turnout was dismal. Only 12 men arrived, and 2 of them left early. The meeting could have been a footnote in failure, but instead it became the pivot of history.
Among those who stayed was Alexander Hamilton, who saw opportunity in the emptiness. With the others, he drafted a short but powerful report calling for a new convention, one that would not merely tweak trade rules, but revise the entire structure of government. They sent that call to Congress and to all 13 states. It was an audacious proposal to rethink the Articles of Confederation themselves. Against the odds, Congress agreed. The following May, in 1787, delegates from 12 states gathered in Philadelphia. They didn't just amend the Articles, they wrote an entirely new framework, the United States Constitution. That Constitution would establish the 3 branches of government, balance power between large and small states, and create the enduring structure we still live under today. And it all began in an almost forgotten conference room in a harbor town where barely anyone showed up. The Annapolis Convention is a reminder that progress often starts with dissatisfaction and vision, the courage to say, this isn't working, let's start again. Without it, there might never have been a constitutional convention, nor a constitution at all. This has been another Footnotes of History, brought to you by Preservation Oaks. Because even a quiet meeting with empty chairs can ignite an idea powerful enough to shape a nation, and that's worth preserving.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff, and we're here today with Jen Mason from the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame in Vail, Colorado. Let's pick up where we left off. Welcome back, Jen.
Hi, Sean. I'm happy to be back. Thank you for having us.
You're most welcome. Thank you for all you do there, too.
Oh, I love it. I have the best job in the world.
Now, Jen, what exhibitions are currently open to the public at the museum, and what themes or stories do they explore?
Well, we do, we are kind of broken up into different, bays or segments. You could call it the kind of the foundation or our crown jewel. It's called Climb to Glory, and it's the legacy of the 10th Mountain Division. And that's kind of like the number, the first exhibit you see when you walk in. And then, of course, we have our Hall of Fame exhibit. Our Hall of Fame exhibit is amazing because we have videos and photos from, we have started inducting people into our Hall of Fame since 1977. So we have over 250 members. So it's this really cool digital display. And you can learn about Bill Maroltz, who was he was the head coach of the U.S. ski team for a long time, or you can learn about Minnie Dole, who started the 10th Mountain Division. Or you can also learn about Cindy Nelson, who was an Olympian herself in 1976. There's over 250 people in that exhibit, but it all fits on one big giant touch screen, Technology is a beautiful thing.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
Yeah. We are located in Vail. We are not the Vail Museum, but we do have the story of Vail and the original Vail gondola, which is so fun. And then we have this incredible touchscreen table that has all the resorts in Colorado. Like if you want to see the trail map from 1952 from Aspen We have that on this touchscreen display.
Oh,
If you want to see the original trail map from Monarch Mountain, which is this teeny tiny little mountain, incredible ski area, lots of fun, really fun, big steep mountain. We have that trail map, and we have what their lift tickets look like and what their first, marketing poster was. So it has that Colorado Resorts table has so much information on it.
very cool. I was reading that one of your permanent exhibits is titled Out There, The Evolution of Snowboarding. How has the museum curated the story of snowboarding in Colorado?
So the evolution of snowboarding, I'm going to give a big shout out to a guy who's this really cool guy that lives in Boulder. His name is Trent Bush. And the museum over 20 years ago was able to collaborate with Trent Bush, who's a snowboarder, industry insider, and really a true snowboard historian. And what makes this exhibit so special is that it contains the most complete snowboard artifact collection in the world, including some of the earliest examples in the snowboard innovation and big name prototypes. We have, there's kind of the two godfathers of snowboarding. You got Tom Sims, and you also have Jake Burton Carpenter. And, they didn't just like, oh, I'm going to make a snowboard. Like there's this whole, you can see how they evolved. We have their beginnings, the very first one, to all the way to what they are now today, which makes this collection a very unique collection in the world.
Right. Yeah, very cool.
We're always paying attention to new technology and ways to improve our exhibits. We have a new Letters Home exhibit, which is located in the Climb to Glory exhibit. It's a great example of this. We were able to use technology and a digital touchscreen to display more artifacts than ever before that relate to the history of the tent. Because a couple years ago, we just had this plexiglass display that had 3 letters. The World War II was rooted in letters. Letters went back and forth from the soldiers back to the families. There was a ton of letters that went back and forth. And we were like, but we're only showing 3 letters.
Right.
And so what we did is we took that exact plexiglass case, turned it into a touchscreen exhibit. And right now, we have over like 4,000 letters and photos from soldiers from the 10th and their families that are going back and forth. And if you want to hear all the love letters, you could sort by love letters, or you could sort by family members to children, or you could sort by, the soldiers telling their stories back to their family. Like, it's a really cool exhibit. So that's how we are kind of using technology to keep updating our exhibits, which is pretty interesting.
What a collection you have. Wow.
It's amazing.
Do you showcase parts of your collection outside the museum walls, like in satellite locations or touring exhibitions?
We just did. There's in Boulder, Colorado. Boulder Boulder's kind of an interesting, eclectic little town. Like Boulder is kind of a ski town. Eldora is not that far away, but it's also a college town, so it's got a lot of ingenuity in it. But Boulder also is a big mecca in the forefront of soft goods and hard goods in the ski industry. And so Boulder just opened a new hotel, and it's called the Limelight Hotel. And they asked Trent Bush and the museum to do an exhibit of all Boulder people that have connections back to the snow sports industry. And we have this new exhibit in the Limelight Hotel lobby with it. It all is connected back to Boulder, but it's got people like Jerry. Everybody knows that brand, Jerry, Gerry. Jerry was a 10th Mountain Division, of course, 10th Mountain Division soldier. And then you've got, David Jacobs from Spider. And Spider, of course, they outfitted the US ski team for decades. And, so just cool things like that. So we have a new satellite exhibit there. And then we also have some of our artifacts. There's some of our artifacts live in a small museum in Idaho Springs. And also Winter Park has a couple of our artifacts in the lobby of the ski resort at Winter Park. So we do have some other artifacts around the state.
Oh, very cool. Now, Jen, have there been any recent efforts to restore or conserve items in your collection, and what were their impacts?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, we're always looking to improve our restoration and projects. And we own and operate down in Denver or in Golden Wheat Ridge area. We have a 3,000 square foot, what we call resource center. And we are in the process, because it's our 50th anniversary, we are in the process of looking for a new resource center location, because we really need to get into a temperature controlled environment, humidity controlled environment, and just do better practices on ways to store all of the artifacts that we currently have in our collection.
I was reading that you guys had restored a historic gondola.
Yes, we got a call from a gentleman by the name of Dr. Richard Parker, and he has lived in Vail for a long time. And he has on his deck, he had an original 1962 Vail gondola. And so he said I could have it if I could get it off his deck. And I went over and looked at it, and I was like, oh, this thing, it had a big hole in the bottom of it and had a hole in the roof, and there was a big tree kind of growing out of it. And we were able to collaborate with the town of Vail, and we were able to get it restored at a vintage car place down in Denver. But we had to get it to Denver. We had to get it back up to Vail. Oh, wow. But it is the cutest. It is now it's never looked this good. It's adorable. And now it's sitting in the middle of Vail Village, and you can climb in it and check it out, which is so fun. And that was the original 4-person gondola that Vail opened with.
It's from 1962 when Vail started?
Yes, sir. It's from 1962, the first gondola in the state of Colorado, which is pretty fun.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
No wonder you wanted to restore it. Oh,
yeah. Yes. But I was like, how are they going to do this? But they did a wonderful job. Vanguard car restoration.
Very cool. What's your most valuable ancient or popular exhibit or artifact in your collection?
I think one of the things that we definitely have in there that gets talked about the most is we have Tom Sims, who is considered kind of one of the godfathers of snowboarding again. We have a snowboard that he made in woodshop in the early 60s. It was kind of the evolution and the beginning of this whole entire snowboard industry. So that's pretty fun. And then we also have a snurfer in our collection, which is Sherman Poppin. And we have his daughter's snurfer. Her name is Wendy. She was given at Christmas time in 1965 by her father. A snurfer it's essentially a snowboard. It has at the very tip of it, it has like a little like loop, and so that you can then hold onto a rope, kind of like maybe a water ski.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most popular toys in 1965. It was one of the most popular gifts at Christmas time.
Oh, cool.
And Sherman Poppin, his first prototype, is actually in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of American history.
Now, I know you get a lot of donations, just like the gondola. What are a few key artifacts or records that have been donated?
Everything that's donated, one of the things that we value in our collection is there's how many pairs of head standard skis. So for those of you who are skiers, they were called head standards, and everybody had the same skis. But the difference is that the ones that are in our collection, we know the story behind them, and we know who owned them and when they skied on them, and we might have photos that go along with that artifact. So the most important thing is knowing the story behind the artifact. And that's what makes our collection so unique. A lot of people have head standards and old vocals and old skis in their garage, but they might not know who owned them, where they were, where they bought them, all the fun facts behind the artifacts. and that we have all that information and it's all cataloged.
All right. I was watching a couple of videos, and it was about the fact that skiing champions, those people that compete and are world competitors, they come to your museum and they give you artifacts, and they make appearances at your museum.
Yes, yes, exactly. So we do get people like Cindy Nelson, a bronze medalist, and, she's given us artifacts. And then, of course, Michaela Schifrin right now, which is, the world's greatest skier, which is incredible. We are literally watching and witnessing history every time she gets into a start house right now. She's given us 2 of her crystal globes, both of which had maybe an incident. One was given to her, it had a crack in it on the podium, but so they made her a second one. And so she gave us the first one, which is so fun. And then a couple seasons ago, Michaela is, so successful that she won a crystal globe in slalom. And she was making a commercial, Land Rover commercial, with all of her crystal globes from the season. And they did this cute thing. They put them all in the passenger seat. She put the seatbelt on in this commercial, and then one of them slipped out from under the seatbelt and it broke. So she gave us that crystal globe, and there are some skiers in this world, ski racers that have, raced their whole lives, and they would never consider putting a crystal globe in a situation like that. But Michaela has so many. It's not that she doesn't value them, but she was able to give us that one that broke as well. So that was really fun.
That's cool.
And, we have Billy Kidd's helmet. Billy Kidd, as we all know, he was a big, ski racing. They were the first medals for the United States in men's downhill skiing, him and Jimmy Huga. And he wore this really cool red, white, and blue striped helmet. And we have that helmet in our collection.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, very cool. You were talking earlier about technology. And I want to ask, how is your organization handling the digitization of records and photographs to make sure that they remain accessible for the future?
Yeah, so we are trying really hard to make sure that these records and all these items that we have are accessible. So for the past 15 years, the museum has been digitizing its film and the photo collection as well as its artifacts. So this is done through grants and also as well as countless hours from volunteers and our staff. So currently right now, over a fourth of our collection is now available online through our online collection.
Oh, cool.
And also through our social media platforms.
Wow. How does somebody access that?
So you can go to our website, which is snowsportsmuseum.org, and hit the digital collection button. And you can see all these artifacts, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's very cool. Good job. Way to go.
Yes. Yeah. No, we're working on it. Even though we're only a fourth of the way there, we've done a lot lately, but we still have a lot more to go. But we're all you got to do is chip away at it every day.
Oh, yeah. Now, how big is your collection?
Our collection is pretty incredible. The Colorado Snowsports Museum, we currently have 15,000 artifacts accounted for in our database. This does not include the backlog or loans at this time. So we have items all the way from the 1800s all the way to today. Like I was just saying, that we have things from Michaela from a couple of years ago. In terms of size, we house pins that are the size of a dime. To also, we have not just the gondola that was donated to us recently, but we also have other gondolas from Aspen and Winter Park. So think of how big, like we have huge artifacts the size of a gondola. Yeah. And then we also have teeny tiny little ski pins that are so important to us. Fantastic. That are teeny tiny.
Now, if I'm listening somewhere in the world, would you take a donation of a historical skiing related artifact from anywhere in the world, or are you restricting your collection to Colorado?
So we restrict our collection to Colorado in general.
Okay.
Of course, there's always exceptions. We do ask whoever is handing us the artifact, if somebody maybe bought it in a vintage thrifty store or something like that, they don't know the story, most likely we wouldn't accept it unless it's something very rare, like a really, really old ski from the 1800s.
Right.
And it might be a hole, like we would call a hole in our collection. So we might have a piece of the evolution of skiing maybe missing. But in general, we really try to get artifacts that have a Colorado connection and that we know the story, because again, that's what makes us so unique.
Right. Now, you have 15,000 artifacts around that. What tools or programs are used by your organization to oversee and catalog your collection?
So we use a database management collection called Past Perfect.
Okay.
And that is how we manage our collection as well as our online features.
Yeah, a lot of people use that.
Yes, yeah. It is kind of the industry standard for museums.
Now, how is the museum funded? Can you talk about your organization's funding model and share any financial targets you hope to reach in the next year?
Yeah, so we are funded. I'm going to give a big shout out to the town of Vail. So the town of Vail essentially gives us pretty much free rent in the space that we are located in. So right there, if you think about it, not having to pay rent in the town of Vail for a 3,000 square foot space, that's why we're able to not charge an admission fee. So that's very, very helpful. And then we also get a grant from them, an operational grant. We get an operational grant from them. But after that, after the town of Vail, after that, which is, about we still have a ton of money to raise, but it is all private donations. So we do rely very heavily on the residents of Colorado to donate to the organization. And we've been very lucky and very fortunate that we do have a lot of people that are very passionate about the sport of skiing.
Oh, very cool. You also have a hall or something that you rent and people can have events at the museum?
Yes, so that's another great way that it's a revenue source for us. So if you wanted to host an anniversary party or a wedding rehearsal party, you can rent the museum after hours. And that's a good revenue source for us. It's not a huge revenue source for us, but that's a good revenue source for us. But another way that we bring in a source of revenue is we have this amazing gift shop that's all very ski and snow themed with very unique gifts. And just kind of like all museum gift shops, all the money goes right back in to the museum. And that's another really good revenue source for us. But again, if it is really truly our members and our donors that keep the museum open and free to all.
Is your gift shop online so anyone can go to your website and shop?
Yes, our gift shop is online.
Oh,
yes. So
cool.
if you go to Colorado Snowsports Museum.org, you'll see a little box in the right-hand corner that says store. And that
cool.
store, all the revenue and all the items, just the profits, just 100% goes right back into the museum.
I love skiing related gifts and stuff, art collector's items, and that stuff is cool.
Yeah, it's so fun. We have a wonderful gift shop. We have Christmas ornaments, we have trail signs, we have a ton of 10th Mountain logoed, like we have beanies and baseball hats and pins and t-shirts and sweatshirts, like all the 10th Mountain stuff is also available online.
Oh, thanks for that. Now, what unique benefits do members receive? What types of membership options are offered?
Well, we have, memberships start at as low as $75, which is wonderful. And then it goes all the way up to $10,000 a year. And for those people who want to come to our educational series in the evening, if they are a member, they get a lower price ticket, and they also get a reserved seat. So they don't have to show up right at 5:30 when the doors open. We save seats for all of our members at our educational series. And we have membership parties that only members get invited to, and then around Christmas time, at the party, they'll get a special discount in the gift shop, which is perfect for holiday gifts. But every day in the museum, if you're a member, you get a 10% discount in the gift shop.
Wow. Very cool. Lots of nice benefits. I ran into the membership page on your website, and it's got all of this detailed as far as the levels and that kind of thing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And at the higher levels, we also have we're part of NARM. So if you're a big museum goer, NARM is the National American Reciprocal Museum member. So if you are a member of our museum, you can get into many, many other museums around the globe for free with our membership card. And we have a new system. We have digital member cards. So it just lives in your wallet on your phone.
Wow, very cool.
I know, it's very cool. Yeah.
Technology.
I know.
You mentioned a Christmas gathering. What other annual gatherings or celebrations does your organization hold?
Well, we host every year, as I said before, we are the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame. So once a year, we induct 3 to 5 people into our Hall of Fame.
Oh, right.
And that's another whole process on how you get into the Hall of Fame and how you nominate someone. But those people who go through that whole process, those that make it into the Hall of Fame, it's a very elite group of people. We do a big celebration for them, and it's also our largest fundraiser.
Wow. When did the Hall of Fame start?
The Hall of Fame started in 1977, 1 year after the museum started. So we've been doing it for 48 years. And of course, in that first class with Minnie Dole, and we have some pretty famous Hall of Fame members. Larry and Marnie Jump, they started a basin, and we have Gordy Wren from Steamboat. Like I said, we have Fidel Pfeiffer from Aspen and Steve Knowlton from Aspen. So that's really what connects us to the larger Colorado snow sports industry is the Hall of Fame.
Right. Yeah. Some wonderful people.
Oh, without those people and their impacts. And what's cool is it's not just athletes, but you can be a sport builder or an inspiration, or so we have different categories. But people always think of the Hall of Fame as someone that's an athlete, and of course we do have a lot of athletes in our Hall of Fame. But it's also people that did the work behind the scenes, someone that you never would have heard of otherwise. So we're able to tell those stories as well.
That's what I was going to ask you. If you could share an induction story that resonates deeply and maybe hasn't gotten as much public attention as you think it should.
Yeah, like one of my favorite stories is Larry and Marnie Jump. Like they started A Basin. A Basin is this iconic, amazing ski area in Colorado. It's got this it's very gnarly. It just has it still has an old dirt parking lot, and there's no lodges there. There's a base area lodge, but there's no housing development up there. And it's the highest ski resort in Colorado. It's just this gnarly, super fun resort. And this adorable couple, they were both in World War II, started A Basin. And they celebrated 75 years ago. I think they're now in their 77th year as a ski resort in Colorado. And I just think it's so cool. These two people founded a ski resort in Colorado just out of nothing,
Yeah.
So, fun stories like that.
That's very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the museum also offers guided walking tours of Vail Village Tuesdays and Thursdays. How do those tours tie into the museum's mission? And what local history do they uncover that visitors might miss otherwise?
So those tours are incredible. So even if we offer Vail history tours, like you said, on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. And even as a longtime Vail local, you could take that tour and you're going to learn something new. So it really is, part of our mission is educating and inspiring others to seek adventure, because we really want people to get inspired to go outdoors and do their own thing. It is fun to tell the stories of all these guys, like maybe Lou Dawson, who's in our Hall of Fame. He was the first one to ski all the Colorado 14,000 foot peak in Colorado. But what we want to do is inspire you to go do your own version of maybe skiing all the peaks. You know, you might not ski the 14,000 foot mountains, but you might ski your backyard every day. You know, so that's part of what we're here to do, is tell the story of Colorado and the 10th Mountain Division and the town of Vail on it, you know, twice a week.
That's fantastic. I'm sorry to interrupt, Jen, but it's time for us to take a break for a few minutes.
Okay, yeah. These little segments are flying by. This is going by very quickly. It's so fun to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. Listeners, stay with us. We'll be right back after these important messages about becoming a museum member. There's a membership level for every interest and every budget. We'll see you in a few.
Love Colorado. Love mountains. Love snow. At the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame in Vail, they're preserving the heritage of skiing and snowboarding, and you can help. With membership levels starting at just $75, you become part of a community that keeps the museum free and accessible to all. Members enjoy a 10% discount at the museum gift shop, invitations to exclusive members-only events, reserved seating at special presentations, and behind-the-scenes access to the archives. Higher levels include private tours of our museum, Vail Village, or even Camp Hale. Your support helps tell the stories of Colorado snowsports, from the World War II Alpine soldiers of the 10th Mountain Division to today's Olympic champions, from the evolution of snowboard culture to the mountain communities that sustain it.
Join us in preserving this legacy for future generations. Visit snowsportsmuseum.org/become a member or call the museum at 970-476-1876. Together, we'll keep celebrating Colorado snowsports, because every powder day deserves a story. Colorado Snowsports Museum. Join today.
Bored? Yearning to hear something new? Well, you're about to be satisfied. Picture this. An episode of the Preservation Oaks podcast from Hawaii, where you'll learn about a hidden temple and bathing complex used by the Queen and the royal family themselves. Just dripping with intrigue and history. That's all covered in episode 2 with Dr. Paul Brennan. Now, try to think about something else. Can't, right? Well, you don't have to, because Preservation Oaks is available anytime at preservationoaks.podbean.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate it very much when you like, subscribe, or follow us to hear every satisfying episode.
I don't know who you are. I don't know exactly what you want. If you are looking for cheap thrills, I can tell you we don't do that. What we do have are a very particular set of historical knowledge. Knowledge that has been acquired over many very long careers by very, very smart guests. History that makes this podcast to wonderful people like you. If you listen and follow this podcast now, that'll be the end of it. You will succeed. The knowledge will make you happy and wise. But if you don't, it will haunt you. It will needle you until you listen and follow, and we may enlighten you.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff, and we're here today with Jen Mason from the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame in Vail, Colorado. Welcome back, Jen.
Well, thank you. It's so good to be back. Thanks again for letting us get into all the good stuff and the good parts of the museum.
Well, thank you for sharing it. Appreciate it. How does your organization reach out to the community and engage people in learning about history?
We try to make the stories really exciting and kind of relate it back to today's world and and how it changed. Maybe this technology changed and that's what changed the industry or something like that. But we really try to engage the audience by telling really fun stories. Like skiing is fun.
Yeah.
Like we're a fun museum and it should be fun. And that's why we have our whole educational series and we bring in different speakers that tell the story from their perspective. And we try to really get people that are really engaging and fun and have a fun and, interesting story to tell.
Well, thanks for doing that. Can you describe your collaboration with schools to help introduce students to your region's historical roots?
Yes. So it's so fun. My favorite thing is we try to bring as many students from Eagle County, Summit County, and Lake County. Those are kind of the three counties that are closest to us. We try to get as many fourth graders in as we can. And the reason why we choose fourth grade is because in fourth grade in the state of Colorado, you learn about your community.
Right.
So we try to engage them and bring the kids into the museum and really explain to them what the 10th Mountain is and what those guys did and how literally they created the snow and the ski industry back in the day and how it just didn't happen. They literally created it. So, and it's just so fun and they just get so excited. And my favorite thing is they have the best questions and they love coming to the museum and just learning. And we do have an educational collection of 10th Mountain artifacts that they can touch, which is really fun for them. One of the things I want to get, which I have to figure out how to do it is, the big thing for the 10th Mountain Division is their backpacks weighed 90 pounds. And I always am trying to explain to them how much 90 pounds is.
Yeah.
I really want to get something that weighs 90 pounds that I can drag out and have them try to pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even, when we talk about skiing history, right? Like you have a fashion section in your museum and to think about the history of skiing fashion, because it's not like regular clothing. It has to keep you warm. It has to be lightweight. All these requirements for ski fashion, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And ski fashion, especially for women, was crazy to think that women, back in the 1900s, skied in skirts.
Yeah.
In long wool skirts.
Yeah.
So, and think about that too, wool.
Yeah.
Wool was the go-to fabric that we used to use. And when wool gets wet, it gets smelly.
Right.
So we are so lucky that we live in the era that we live in with Gore-Tex and down and all the different materials that repel the water to keep us warm and dry. Because if you are wet, you're cold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, can you tell us about any annual awards your organization gives out and the achievements they celebrate?
Yes. So along with our Hall of Fame every year, we also have some annual awards that we give out. And one of my favorite ones is we give out what's called Top of the Hill. And it's to an organization that's doing good work in Colorado. And last year we were able to give it to an organization called CRAD, which is Colorado Rapid Avalanche Deployment. And CRAD is the one that trains all the avalanche dogs that work at the resorts throughout the state of Colorado.
Oh,
so that's so far, right now, CRAD is kind of our organization that we're highlighting for the year. And we've also done other Colorado-based organizations like Slipper and Sliders, and the Slipper and Sliders Club of Denver was one of the first Black ski clubs that started in Denver, and everybody would get together and come up into the mountains from Denver and go skiing in the early 70s.
Fantastic. Jen, how can community members participate as volunteers, and what types of roles or projects are open to them?
So we are always looking for volunteers to help us, especially with our events and at our annual Hall of Fame event. That requires a lot of volunteers. And then also we do have docent shifts available. If you want to come and just greet people in the museum in the afternoons, kind of our busiest time in the winter is, like 3 to 5, everybody gets off the mountain and they're just, instead of going après skiing, they might go après museum. They'll just spend a little time out in, operating in the museum. And that's a good way to like walk around and meet people. And then, of course, at our educational series, we're always looking for volunteers to help us with setup and breakdown and working the bars and stuff like that. So that's fun.
Absolutely fun for a lot of people. I imagine you've got a whole team of volunteers.
Yes. And then if you're in the greater Denver area, we are always looking for people to help us at our resource center, like we were talking about earlier, help digitize and catalog all of the artifacts that needs to, we have a backlog of artifacts that need to be cataloged. So.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. So folks, if you're listening in Colorado and you'd like to volunteer, please contact the Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
Now, can they fill something out right on your website?
If you are interested in volunteering, it would be great if you just send us an email to museum@Snowsports Museum, and we will connect you. And we'll kind of talk to you and figure out what kind of jobs you're looking for.
Fantastic. Thank you. Now, there must be other museums in the area. How does your organization connect and collaborate with similar institutions at the local, state, or national level to further shared goals?
So we are part of a couple different now it's so wonderful with the technology of Zoom. We meet quarterly with the 10th Mountain Foundation Board. So it's the 10th Mountain Division Foundation, History of Colorado, the Denver Public Library. For those of you that don't know, the 7th floor of the Denver Public Library is dedicated to the 10th Mountain Division. And that whole collection, it's all endowed by a gentleman who's a 10th Mountain soldier called Ben Duke. And they have the most incredible artifacts on the 7th floor of the Denver Public Library. And then there's also other 10th Mountain organizations. So we meet 4 times a year and get together and just talk about what we're all doing. So that's one thing that we do on kind of a local Colorado level. And then we are also involved with a group of ski museums, which is nationally and internationally. And we meet once a month on Zoom with this group of ski museums from all over the world. It's really fun.
Cool. Yeah, that would be fun. That would be great.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's run by this amazing woman called Winnie Jones, who's based out of Whistler, Canada, which is so fun. It's just fun to be with all the ski museums from around the world.
Yeah. And think about all the history that is in those museums.
I know.
Goodness.
And the Oslo Museum in Norway, they have an artifact that dates back to like 500 BC. It's pretty incredible.
Now, is capturing oral histories part of your work? And what role do these stories play in preserving local heritage?
If you are inducted into our Hall of Fame, we make a video, like a 5 to 7 minute, essentially documentary on why you're in the Colorado Snowsports Hall of Fame. Cool. So it's more than oral histories, it's a video. But what we're now doing is going back in time, because we started inducting people in 1977, and we didn't start making videos until 1996.
Right.
So we are missing almost 20 years of videos. We are going back in time, and we're trying to bang away and trying to create 4 to 5 of those videos from the first 20 years, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So that's really fun for us. But I will say we work closely with the town of Vail and our library. And the town of Vail has an amazing database of oral histories. And we are always sending, before people pass away, like we are sending them names and people to communicate and get the stories with at the town of Vail.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any notable books, guides, or articles that your organization has published, and what topics do they cover?
About a year and a half ago, our curator and director of collections, Dana Matthews Zaffeld, wrote a book called Skiing in Colorado through Arcadia Press.
Cool.
And it is this incredible book on all the history of skiing in the state of Colorado. So we are really proud of that book. And Dana has won many awards kind of in the historical book world for the hard work that she did. And it's really cool because all the photos that are in the book are part of our collection.
Wow. Are there any essential readings or resources you'd recommend for community members interested in exploring your Colorado snow sport?
Well, we do have a fascinating collection of books that we sell in the gift shop. And, of course, we have a ton of books on the 10th Mountain Division, which is pretty incredible, and of course that kind of covers, that blankets the whole United States. If you are a true lover of Vail and Vail's history, Pete Seibert's book is just over the top. It's a beautiful story and it tells the whole story of Vail. And then we also have this amazing book on Fetal Pfeiffer and how Aspen became about, which is an incredible book. It's called Why Aspen. And it really tells his story. He has an incredible story about how it all came about.
Fantastic. Thank you for those resources.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to provide you with the contact information for the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame. Their website is www.snowsportsmuseum.org. You can phone them at 970-476-1876. Their address is 231 South Frontage Road East, Vail, Colorado 81657. And they're on Facebook at Colorado Snowsports Museum. You can email them at museum@snowsportsmuseum.org. All right. Now, Jen, what kinds of information and resources can visitors find on your organization's website?
You can visit our website to learn about maybe upcoming events that we have and possible tours. And for those of you who aren't here on a Tuesday or a Thursday, we also do private history tours upon request. Those are a little bit different. They cost more than our public tours, but our website is a fabulous resource of upcoming events and if our hours might change or whatever. But our hours don't change in high season.
You've got a great website, by the way.
Thank you. We've worked really hard on that. So that's a new website for us.
And listeners, I've done a few of these private tours with various historical societies and museums, and they are top notch. I mean, you learn stuff that you don't learn in the regular tours, and it's just really amazing. So I highly recommend that. Now, Jen, what avenues exist for people who want to financially support your organization, and how can they donate?
Well, they can donate online through our website. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a button that says donate. And if you know someone that was a lifelong skier or snowboard enthusiast, you can donate. You can do a one-time gift in their name, and then we will contact the family that you donated in Joe Smith's name to the Colorado Snowsports Museum. So that's always a nice way to contribute. And also, if you have an artifact or digital photos, that is a wonderful way to contribute and keep the stories alive in Colorado.
A long time ago, my uncle really got into the first kind of video cameras. And he took a whole lot of videos of the family and family events and God knows what else. And I was thinking, if people have those kind of videos of snow areas in Colorado and skiing competitions or whatever, would you be open to receiving those as donations?
Oh my goodness, those are our favorite things. The videos from family videos, if we know what resort it is and maybe kind of around like circa, it doesn't have to be the exact year.
Yeah.
We just received like 5 videos from Winter Park and Winter Park is going to be over the top excited. So for those types of videos,
Cool.
we accept all videos. And of course, there's different ways you can transfer them. And if it's on 16 millimeter film, we can also take that as well. And if we know what it is, we will pay to get it digitized. It's hard because sometimes people don't know what it is. And then we digitize it and then it's a bunch of it's not Colorado or something like that. So if we know what it is, then we will digitize it usually straight away.
Okay, great. Now, can you share some of the unique ways your organization benefits the community and explain why these contributions matter?
Yeah, I think keeping the stories alive and telling the stories of, what it was like back in the day. And, and then we're in the process of recording all of our educational series. And so then that means in 20 years from now, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but in 20 years from now, the founders, these guys like Rod Slifer and Terry Minger and those guys that were here in the early days, they won't be around anymore. And so to hear the stories out of those guys' mouths, directly out of, on video, I think that is really the preservation of the history is what we're really trying to convey to the community. And we are kind of the go-to organization when A Basin turned 75. They contacted us and said, what resources do you have on A Basin? And they were blown away at the amount of information, digital photos, video, and stories that we had on A Basin in the early years. So it really shows you that, we are there to preserve the history.
If your organization had access to endless resources, what dreams or big projects would you pursue, and how would this shift the way you operate?
Well, it would be so fun to have a much larger space in Vail, but also in every resort, in every ski area in the state of Colorado. Like, wouldn't it be fun to have this exact museum in Winter Park and Telluride and Aspen and Steamboat and Breckenridge? Like, it would be so fun to have little mini, like make our museum massive and then have little mini 1,000-foot space museums all over the state.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
It would be so fun. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. A distributed Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
That's nice.
I would love it.
What a vision. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any additional message or important information you'd like to share with the community or your members?
I feel like that the museum is more than just, we are only as good as all the artifacts and all the stories that we are getting every day. Because like I said, my favorite part of the day is when I get to hear the stories. Because every day, not only are we telling the stories, but we are listening to your stories and then we are passing those stories down. Because everybody has a story. If you're a skier, you have a story. How did you get involved? Like your parents took you when you were 5 or whatever. So I just think preserving the stories are really what make us so unique.
Jen, this has been such a pleasure.
No. Oh, it's been so fun meeting you and talking to you about the museum. Again, it's just been, you guys are a well-oiled machine and very organized, and it was really fun to do the podcast.
What you and your team do at the Colorado Snowsports Museum is nothing short of inspiring. Your team takes something people often experience as recreation, skiing, snowboarding, the mountains, and then reveals the deep human, military, cultural, and historical stories behind it. You're preserving the legacy of thousands of pioneers, athletes, soldiers, and communities who shaped Colorado. And by doing so, you help all of us understand our past a little bit better. Thank you so much for joining us today on Preservation Oaks.
Well, thank you for having me, Sean. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. And with that, we'll end our time with our guest executive director, Jen Mason from the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame. Listeners, please stay tuned for my comments and wrap-up, which is coming up next. As we bring today's episode of Preservation Oaks to a close, I want to take a few moments to reflect on what we've just experienced together, because this was not simply an interview about a museum. This was a conversation about people, perseverance, vision, and the power of preserving stories that shape who we are. Our guest for this episode has been Ms. Jen Mason, Executive Director of the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame, located in the heart of Vail, Colorado. And I can say without hesitation that Jen is one of those rare leaders who brings together deep knowledge, genuine passion, and an unmistakable sense of purpose. Throughout our conversation, Jen shared not only the remarkable history of Colorado snowsports, but also the human stories behind that history. Stories of soldiers who returned from war and built an industry from scratch. Athletes who pushed the limits of what was thought possible. Families who followed snow and opportunity into the mountains. And communities that chose adventure, resilience, and creativity as a way of life. What resonated most strongly for me, and I suspect for many of you listening, was Jen's reminder that everybody has a story. Whether it's learning to ski for the first time, serving in the 10th Mountain Division, racing competitively, teaching the next generation, or simply falling in love with the mountains. These individual experiences collectively form the cultural fabric of Colorado, and in many ways, the nation itself. The accomplishments of the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame are nothing short of extraordinary. For nearly 50 years, the museum has operated as a free and inclusive institution, welcoming visitors from around the world and ensuring that access to history is never limited by admission fees. The museum preserves and interprets more than 15,000 artifacts, ranging from early skis and snowboards to Olympic medals, historic gondolas, wartime letters, films, photographs, and oral histories. Through innovative use of technology, including interactive exhibits, digital archives, and multimedia storytelling, the museum continues to make history accessible, engaging, and deeply personal. We heard about the museum's crown jewel exhibits, including the powerful story of the 10th Mountain Division, whose influence extends far beyond the battlefield and into the very foundation of the American ski industry. We learned about the evolution of snowboarding, groundbreaking athletes like Michaela Schifrin, the preservation of iconic artifacts like the original Vail gondola, and the museum's growing role as a community hub, hosting educational programs, author talks, school visits, walking tours, and cultural gatherings that connect past and present. But just as important as what the museum has achieved is what it aspires to become. Jen shared a bold and inspiring vision for the future, one that depends directly on community support. That vision includes expanding the museum's footprint in Vail and, most excitingly, creating a statewide network of satellite museums at ski resorts across Colorado. Imagine that. Smaller curated museum spaces, extensions of the flagship institution, bringing local ski history, artifacts, and stories directly to the places where that history was made. It's a vision that honors regional identity while strengthening a shared statewide legacy. Achieving that future will require continued investment through memberships, donations, volunteering, artifact contributions, and public advocacy. Museums like this do not thrive by accident. They thrive because communities believe that history matters, that stories deserve to be saved, shared, and passed on. So if today's episode moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own connection to the mountains, I encourage you to take the next step. Visit the museum if you're in Colorado. Explore their digital collections if you're elsewhere. Consider becoming a member, making a donation, volunteering your time, or sharing a story or artifact from your own family's past. You can learn more or connect directly with the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame by visiting www.snowsportsmuseum.org, calling 970-476-1876, stopping by the museum at 231 South Frontage Road East in Vail, Colorado, following them on Facebook at facebook.com/Colorado Snowsports Museum, or emailing museum@snowsportsmuseum.org. On behalf of Preservation Oaks, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to Jen Mason for her leadership, her vision, and her unwavering dedication to preserving Colorado's snow sports history with integrity, care, and heart. And to you, our listeners, thank you for joining us once again. History lives because people choose to listen. And today, you did. Thank you. Now, if questions occur to you and you'd like more information, please connect via the contact information provided. If you're a listener in the area the organization serves and you're not already a member, please consider joining and supporting them. I hope this information helps the audience understand how valuable the Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame is to Colorado and what kinds of excellent services they have to offer to their members and the public. The Colorado Snowsports Museum and Hall of Fame is truly one of our nation's preservation oaks. All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Music used today is from Cymbalbird, JHS Pedals, Marco Belloni Music, Score Wizards, RS Audio, Eugene Myers, Dagger Red, and Scott Holmes. Hey, this is Sean Radcliff. See you all next time on Preservation Oaks. And until then, keep on giving and keep on living the good life.
Microstream Radio is a registered trademark. You can visit at www.microstreamradio.com. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted by Microstream Radio. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, reproduced, copied, or used anywhere without the written permission of Microstream Radio. Preservation Oaks starring Sean Radcliff originates in Salt Lake City, Utah. Be sure to join us for our next episode on your favorite podcast platform. This is Sarah Suarez speaking. Preservation Oaks has come to you through the worldwide podcast platform Podbean, and our home is preservationoaks.podbean.com. Hopefully you found today's episode useful, informative, and thought-provoking. If so, please like, follow, comment, and/or subscribe. Remember that being free means being free to be curious, and that historical and genealogical societies and museums allow us to discover the past, be free to explore, where curiosity opens every door. Thanks to everyone for listening. Stay cozy, curious, and keep exploring the incredible stories that shape our world. Remember to cherish and support the preservation of history in your own communities. The content of this program is provided for educational and informational purposes only. Some material included in this program may be copyrighted by third parties. However, under Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act, the doctrine of fair use allows the limited use of copyrighted material without requiring permission from the rights holders when used for purposes such as education, criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. These uses are legally permitted even if they might otherwise constitute infringement. If you wish to use copyrighted material from this program for purposes beyond fair use, you must obtain permission from the copyright owner. If you believe your copyrighted material has been used in this program in a way that does not qualify as fair use, please contact us at preservationoaks@gmail.com.
Thank you.